and we want to talk today about postpartum planning.
Yes.
That is a really popular question. We talk a lot about like getting pregnant, and then once you get pregnant, and then people just forget about you after you have a baby.
They do.
They like only focus on the baby.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like, who? Like Jamie who? Like, what's going on?
No, it's really interesting because I think we just like, especially when we've been trying to conceive for a while, like you have this vision of the nursery and of like all of the things you need. Let me tell you, you do not need as many things as Baby List tells you.
Yeah.
Baby List tells you need all these. You don't need everything. You don't need a rocker and this and that. But you know, you get excited and the stuff's cute and overpriced, but really cute
and overpriced.
But you know, it's you get that's where your mind goes, and that's what you want to focus on because that's the fun thing.
Yeah.
But you don't focus on planning for postpartum. You focus on like the outfits and all the
frilly stuff.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But
so,
what about me?
Yeah.
After this baby comes out of me, however it comes out.
I have my patients on a pretty solid postpartum plan. Y'all know. I have my patients scheduling out pelvic floor PT. Like literally, like, you know, if your due date is, for example, hypothetically November 15th, which is my birthday, like November 15th, and I want you to have at least 3 appointments in the books 6 to 8 weeks out after that. Even like before you deliver. So I want you calling them like before you deliver and you're like, hey, this is my due date, this is when I want to plan. So then it gives you something on the books. And then the second thing is definitely coming to acupuncture to help regulate your hormones, to help with lactation support, and to help with overall just like anxiety, depression, mood disorders. And then I set you up with my therapist and you, Jamie, because it's like, that's when it's like, let's work on the mental health piece of it.
Yeah, we actually created an entire like postpartum planning package because of this. Because we know how important it is to talk about our vulnerabilities, to talk about, you know, what can make it more difficult for you when you are postpartum. I say it is like the perfect storm. You're sleep deprived, your body is trying to recover, and then you have this thing. You have this thing that's brand new to you and you have to keep it alive and oh my God. And you're supposed to be happy about it, but you're miserable. And it creates this perfect storm and you don't know how to navigate through it and you don't know how to ask for help. And so by talking about what makes you vulnerable to struggle postpartum and coming up with a solid plan
and a preemptive appointment list, you can't back down from it.
No, our actual package, the last appointment is a postpartum check-in. Just like you check in with your OB, no, check in with me. I want to know how you're doing. How are you sleeping? What's going on? Because when you're in it, like when you're not sleeping well, you know, when you're just trying to survive, it's really hard to make that contact.
Yeah. And that's where if you don't set yourself up for success, you pretty much just get lost in the fray of like breastfeeding, pumping, you know, bleeding, laughing when you pee, like all these things that people don't talk about. And it's really like unfortunate because if you are in a space where you don't set yourself up, then no one's gonna do it for you, right? And no one's gonna come in and be like, here, let me take this baby from you. If anything, your anxiety might not even let you leave the baby. But it forces you to so that you can do that. And when people come in to see me for acupuncture, they're like, well, how does acupuncture actually help? I'm like, well, let's talk about lactation for one. It helps with that. It helps with mastitis, right? We do a lot of ultrasound support for mastitis. And then on top of that, we do a lot of like, points for, you know, sleep and regulating your cycles once you are done breastfeeding, things like that. If you choose to breastfeed, because you know your period comes back either in full force or it doesn't come back for like a year, so it just kind of depends.
I came after 3 months both times.
Yeah, that's because her body's like, I'm ready. And it's on you too, so. But you know, that's the whole point. Right? You're supposed to do all these things. And there is no like typical postpartum journey. Everyone's is different. Some people tear. Some people don't. Like some people have an amazing baby that sleeps. Some people have a baby that doesn't latch. Like there are so many struggles that come with postpartum. And if you don't set yourself for success, then what ends up happening is you just get lost.
I agree. And also, you know, when you are in it, because I've been there, like when you are in it, you experience a lot of shame for the struggle, you know, because it is supposed to be this amazing, beautiful experience.
Instagram postable, love my life. I'm a new mom. So
and you too, like it is absolutely amazing, but it's also really, really, really hard. And so having that contact of a support person before your postpartum makes a huge difference because you already know my face, you already know my voice, and it's not reaching out to a stranger when you're at your worst.
Yes.
It's someone that you've already established rapport with, and it doesn't have to be someone that you've seen for months. It could be just one time, but you're like, oh, okay, that's my girl. Like, I know when I'm struggling, that's who I'm gonna call.
It's like when you have that friend that you want to call.
Yeah.
And you're like 911. Like we all have that, like that group chat that we like message in. Like we are the group chat.
Yeah.
It's like, Christina, I need an appointment now. Like I need some like alone time. I need to get away from my husband, my crying baby. It's a lot, right? And I'm like, come in. Like,
absolutely.
You get some quiet time, you get some peace, and you also get some hormone balance. Like, why not do all of that at once?
I agree.
Yeah, I feel like we need to do some too soon.
I know, right? It's like always.
I know.
It's really hard because, you know, most people, they don't realize that they're in it either.
Yeah.
Like, I'm supposed to just muscle through this. Like, I'm supposed to be, you know, miserable.
Yeah.
And, no, like, I jokingly say, like, it's so hard, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, there's this fine line, you know, when it actually turns into actual depression.
Yeah.
You know, so for a lot of people, they experience the baby blues, you know, because they're sleep deprived, their hormones are changing, especially with it coming on of, you know, lactation, or if they're weaning, there's all these things that are happening. But for some people, they experience like really significant depression. They can't get out of bed. They can't connect with their baby. They're not taking care of themselves.
That's a big one.
They're not showering. They've lost.
They can't work out.
Yeah, they've lost themselves completely. No, you don't need to just muscle through that. That's not okay.
Yeah.
That is when you need some support, and you deserve that support. And you know, you can make time for it. You have to make time for it, because if you can't take care of yourself, you are not taking care of that baby.
Absolutely. And like, I think some of the signs are very much like, you know, you can help me bounce off, but like the signs that I see when patients come in with postpartum depression, anxiety is like, you know, the disconnect and the inability to really like care for this baby or care for anyone else, right? Like, because you're in a space of just anger. Like, a lot of people actually have postpartum rage.
Yeah.
Very common. Like, they're like super angry with their husbands. Like, there's a kind of like a unfairness that comes up where it's like, how come my body gets to do this, but then my husband gets to go work out and like go play with his boys and like go to the club, like, you know, it's and it's kind of like this thing that like is very unspoken. Like, women are not supposed to be upset about it. This is our job. Like, we're supposed to have babies and then be smile and be cute about it, but then also work out and wear like a Lululemon set that matches the next day. It's not gonna happen. And that kind of, I guess, like space and inability to connect and that anger is what you need to work on, and to remember that that's not normal, one, and that's not who you are, two.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people normalize it. They're like, this is just what you're supposed to feel. And it's not.
No, you don't have to. No, I think a lot of us, you know, a lot of us know about postpartum depression, but postpartum anxiety is very interesting. You know, people with postpartum anxiety, they're often worried about the baby not sleeping, or the baby not SIDS, but it's like repeatedly checking, you know, not being able to separate from the baby whatsoever,
like feeling like if you give this baby up, like the world's gonna end, like
something bad's gonna happen.
Yes.
You know, the fear of driving alone with the baby, like being alone with the baby. And then there's even postpartum OCD where you have these very scary intrusive thoughts that
that's a big one
that most people don't talk about, because they're afraid of what that means about them. You know, they'll have intrusive thoughts about dropping the baby, throwing the baby out the window, drowning the child, poisoning the child. And you know it's OCD because they're terrified that it's going to happen. And they're terrified because that is the worst possible thing that could happen. And that's how we know it's OCD. And that's how we know they're not going to do it. But when you're, again, at the lowest point of your life where you're really struggling and you're having those scary thoughts, like, it is a very lonely experience.
Yeah, because you can't go to your friend and when they ask you, how are you doing? I want to throw my baby out the window.
Yeah, no.
How about you? And like, their face is like, what?
Yeah, no.
What did you say?
That is not something, and people often don't know. I mean, even like pedophilia, OCD thoughts, you know, like, I've had patients who felt very dirty about their breasts when they're breastfeeding and they're describing this difficulty with breastfeeding. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and it's like, oh, they're having OCD thoughts, like sexual thoughts about breastfeeding. And they're often not going to share that with the pediatrician, you know? They're just going to send them to the lactation clinic, but it's not an actual physical problem. It's they're having OCD.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
It is.
And I think that's
so
where you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you have to have a safe space to talk about it, because if you don't, then what ends up happening is you talk to your friends and they're like, oh, like that sucks, I'm so sorry. Or the worst case is like they think you're crazy and they shame you for it, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's why preemptively setting up these things is so important, so that you have a support group and a network, where you're not just alone.
Yeah, and education is key. One of the things that we did was we created this pamphlet. I think I gave them to you, where it's like the what to know and what to do.
Yes.
And I like to give it to patients that are actually still pregnant,
Yes.
so they know what to look out for.
Absolutely.
So because they can, when they experience it, they know what's happening. They're like, oh no, I'm not a bad mom. It's not that. I'm supposed to be this is real depression. This is OCD. And then what to do. And so there's like coping skills and knowing to create your support plan, which is, I always recommend acupuncture, but just having a point of contact.
Yeah. And that is, I think, if anything you can glean from this is like setting yourself up with a point of contact prior to
Absolutely.
delivery. Like, I think that is the one biggest thing. And also letting your friends know, letting your husband know, letting your significant other know, like, this is the plan, so that they can support you in it as well. What about postpartum for men?
I know. So postpartum depression.
People don't talk about that.
No, it is very, very common in men.
Yeah.
And if the mother has postpartum, the man is way more likely to experience postpartum as well.
Is it like a transference, like that term? But is that the therapy term?
I think it's like, they see their partner struggling and, they're struggling themselves, and it's like, you need that other person to be able to help support you, because it's hard for everyone. And there's nothing like leaving the hospital or birth center or wherever you birth your baby, but like being stuck with this baby and just like, it's me now, like I have to keep this thing. It is so scary. It's terrifying. And so it's important to have that supportive partner, but when your partner is struggling, it's not going to be easy. And becoming a mother is scary, but so is becoming a dad.
But no one talks about the dads.
No, they don't. They're also often sleep deprived, and they're scared, and their identity shift, and how to prioritize their time.
They also they'll mention that it's actually hard to connect with the baby because they don't feel like it's theirs, right? Because I think with women, at least there's the oxytocin, the that connection. But I think when you don't have that, then it's almost like this strange thing where you're like, oh, it's like I adopted this baby, it just came out of nowhere, I bought it on Amazon, like here it is, and I don't know what to do with it. It's crying, my wife is crying, now they're both crying, like what do I do? One of the things that feeds depression is it's always related to judgment, and so we all have a filter that's activated when we experience a situation. And when you're telling yourself that things should be this way, or there's something wrong with you that's not this way, you're more likely to feel sad about it. You're more likely to beat yourself up, right? And so if you aren't connecting with your baby and you're telling yourself that there's something wrong with you for that, well, you're very quickly going to become depressed. Absolutely.
That is sad. That is disappointing. But becoming a parent is hard, and adjusting to that role as a father is very overwhelming. You have to reprioritize everything in your life. And postpartum depression looks different in men. It can look different in men.
What are some signs?
So
we already kind of talked about the
so a lot of it can be like the disconnection, the irritability, like being on edge, like the withdrawing and isolating. Just like, I don't know what to do with this. And that can fuel a lot of tension and conflict in the relationship, because the mother is like, what's going on? You're not helping, like you should be doing more, not knowing that their partner is depressed. And so by knowing that is a possibility, that the father could have some depression, I think it can open some doors to make the transition a bit easier.
Absolutely. And I think with men too, it's like men don't talk about it as much, right? It's a little bit more like, as much as people don't talk about postpartum depression with women, I think they don't even talk about postpartum with men, because a lot of people are like, well, why should you have postpartum depression? Because you didn't go anything in your body. It's like, but you're also adjusting to your wife's changes or your significant other's changes, and that's also a big transition, right? So
It
any
is.
transition can cause you to be in a place, again, lack of control, right? If you
Yeah.
don't have control over everything,
Yeah.
that is when your central nervous system kind of goes haywire.
Absolutely. And we actually have a clinician in our office, Dr. Vu, where he sees dads. And, you know, PSI, Postpartum Support International, they have a specific dads group, which is fantastic.
That's really good. I didn't know that.
Oh, absolutely. They have, you know, so it's peer led, which is great. But they have dad support. I know.
The dads need support too.
They
You guys need love.
They really do.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard for everyone.
Yeah.
Even all the pets. Like, you know, it's just like,
I know. Your little pug is like, what's happening?
what about me?
Hey, but he gets all the snacks now, so it's okay.
Well, once they become toddlers and all the food's on the ground, you get
That's true.
everything.
But I think that's like the main things for postpartum, I feel like, and the way to support it. I'm trying to think with postpartum too, we do emphasize with acupuncture a lot on lactation.
Yeah.
If you decide to breastfeed, there are definitely supplements that you can take, herbs that you can do that will help with that, and also lactation stimulating points as well too. I'm really big on like fenugreek, oatmeal, but then there's also a few Chinese herbs that are really wonderful as well too.
Well, I really like about you too is you bring a lot of nutrition, right? And I think that when you're in it postpartum, you aren't very mindful of how to feed your body.
Yeah.
And so I know that there are some, you know, foods that tend to be more nourishing at certain stages.
Absolutely. There's so many good foods. And like in Chinese medicine, there's a whole protocol that I put my patients on what to eat afterwards. Like, you know, as far as like certain like herbs and fruits and veggies, like dazao, which is like a Chinese jujube date. And in Chinese medicine, that's kind of like the biggest, like tonifying, good for the spleen, good for energy. Seaweed's really good for inflammation, things like that. It's probiotic, good for gut health. So there's things that you can incorporate into your food without just taking a ton of supplements, and that helps.
Well, and speaking of Chinese, so I know that, you know, one of my good friends, one of the things when she was postpartum, there's this rule to not leave your house, right? Where you're supposed
to lock down in Asia,
and people take care of you.
Yes. It's called the fourth trimester.
Yes. And that is not what happens here. You go back to work very quickly. You have 6 weeks.
You're expected to bounce back
immediately.
Stop jumping.
And you're supposed to take care of this baby while also taking care of yourself. But, you know, culturally, you know, Eastern.
Everywhere else in the world. Not, I'm telling you, it's like they really take care of the mamas. They're like, you guys are suffering, and like all the in-laws move in, and like, I mean, it's just a whole project. And like, you are not, like, the only thing your job is supposed to do is to feed this baby and to nourish this baby, and that's it.
Everyone else takes care of it.
Everyone else does the dishes, everyone else like brings the stuff, like, you know, and it's a really interesting concept because I think we've lost it here. But I think we're trying to bring it back, right? Like, hey, like, you know, prioritize mama bear. That's really important. But the lockdown is meant so that you don't overexert yourself.
Which is, I mean, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I also always recommend is a postpartum doula. And so we
love our doula.
Right? Because we budget for baby, but what if you can budget for yourself? And so budget for, you know, taking care of your body, taking care of your mental health, but also, like, my doula was amazing. I had a doula for both of my children, and she would make me breakfast. You know, she would hold my baby so I could nap. Like, she, especially as a new parent, you know, she helped me to figure out all of the things.
All the new things.
Oh my God. Yes. If you have it in your budget for a postpartum doula, please get one.
Yes, even like a night nanny, right? Like, people would hire a night nanny for just like the first month, and it would just like help so much because like it gives you like an extra hour of sleep, and like that hour is really important. It's so important to remember that, like, it's, people are like, oh, I don't need it, it's too expensive, and I'm like, you know what's expensive? Your mental health. You know, so like, if you can't do anything, that's expensive, right?
I know.
Everything blows up because of that.
Yeah, no, I think like if you can take care of yourself before, you know, before you were really struggling, then you're really doing a service to your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully, you know, this gives a little bit of insight on like postpartum care from like a female, male perspective, and then also just from an acupuncturist and a therapist perspective as well too. So yeah, thanks, Jeannie.